Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bright Business Owner podcast. My name is Ellis Daniel. I'm one of the senior employment law consultants here at BrightHR. Today, I'm joined by Gemma O'Connor, Head of HR Advisory and Technical Services. Over to you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Ellis. So as you said, my name's Gemma. I am working in HR over 15 years now. In my current role as Head of Advisory, I manage the advice teams across the UK and Ireland.
Fantastic, and thanks for being here today.
You're welcome.
So today we're talking about everything World Cup. So football fever has gripped the nation, and the tournament kickoff is just around the corner on the 11th of June.
Yeah, so that's right. So as the excitement's growing, we're seeing an increase in calls from employers on all things flexible working, approving additional leave requests, alcohol use in the workplace, and lots of excitement building.
Absolutely. And when we see trends like the World Cup, we get a lot of questions from both existing clients and prospective clients about what they can do to sort of mitigate that risk of chaos ensuing. So let's see if we can answer a few of the most common questions from the last few tournaments to help employers prepare for the chaos.
Yeah, sounds good.
So let's start with the most common question. How can employers manage last-minute annual leave requests?
Well, I think the first thing is, I would imagine most football fans have already got their dates of their requests in, but I suppose as things progress, there will be those additional last minute annual leave requests that are coming in. So just making sure that your employees are aware of the policies around annual leave, they know how to request their annual leave, and that management are ensuring that those policies are being applied consistently across the board.
Definitely. And what should employers do if there is a clash in holiday bookings?
Yeah, I think the first thing really is look at your policy. I know a lot of our clients would adhere to a first come, first serve basis policy. So that's something that I would always go to, who put the request in first. And sometimes if you do have a leave cap or anything like that, you may be able to accommodate on a once-off basis, or perhaps have a chat and see if maybe an altered shift pattern could work, a later start time, something along those lines.
And how should employers deal with people phoning in sick after maybe taking the celebrations a little bit too far the night before?
I think normal rules apply. Calling in sick, it's the same whether it's after a World Cup match or if it's just any other random week. So I suppose, again, consistency with your policies. Did the employees adhere to the correct notification requirements? Have that return to work meeting with the employees? Don't necessarily jump to conclusions, but establish the facts and investigate the circumstances on their return. And, you might see patterns, you might not.
So you've mentioned finding patterns there. So the next question is quite a familiar one in that regard. So what do I do if somebody is consistently late the morning after a match?
Yeah, I suppose, again, as with the last question, a lateness, whether it's after a football match or not, it should be handled in the same manner, and consistency is key. Our clients at BrightHR would use our clocking in and clocking out system Blip. So that ensures that you have accurate records of start and finish times. And, if you do need to address issues such as lateness with an employee where it's becoming a conduct issue, you have those records, you have that paper trail in place, which is key.
Absolutely. It's always important to keep that evidence on file and make sure you're backing yourself up as a business owner, essentially. And a bit of a big statistic, really, to throw in the mix, but apparently 42% of employees are reported to have gone into work either drunk or hungover in the last year. So what should employers do about coming into work under the influence?
Yeah, and look, especially if you're in a safety critical workplace, it's really dangerous. So I think making sure that you have policies, and I speak about policies a lot, but ultimately they're the foundation of the employment relationship. So making sure that you have a drug and alcohol policy in place, that you don't just have a policy in place, but it's communicated effectively within the workplace, and that your management team or supervisors know what to do if they suspect that an employee is under the influence, whether that's just continuing on from the night before or whether they've actually had a drink, because you have a duty of care as an employer to those employees and to other colleagues in the workplace, visitors, anybody that may be attending. So crucial that you're addressing those immediately.
Definitely. And what you've said there about having a policy in place is so important. From an advice perspective, I've spoken to many clients who haven't got an alcohol and drug testing policy in place, and then they face issues where they suspect that somebody is potentially under the influence, and then it's hard to retrospectively install that policy. So it's really, really important you have those protective measures in place at all times.
Yeah, like it's definitely tricky for employers to manage, and you know, it's one of those things, I think, you know, even when you're working in HR for quite a lengthy period of time, it's still an awkward one to handle.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's a sensitive topic, isn't it? And how about behaviour outside of work in general? You know, what if you see your employees streaking on the pitch or going viral on social media for antisocial behaviour? Hopefully not.
Well, yeah, hopefully not. I think, you know, from an employer's perspective, I suppose technically the employee is outside of the workplace, but, you know, if that would have any potential reputational damage on the business, or if they could be, you know, attributed back to the company, be it they have their workplace on their social media website or anything like that, the employer does have to manage those situations as well. And again, you know, the pushback you get from employees in those instances is, well, I'm not in work. But you still have to make sure, again, going back to policies and procedures, that employees are aware that, you know, their actions outside the workplace can have consequences within as well. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't like to be dealing with that situation now if someone's streaking across the football pitch.
Definitely, yeah. That's hopefully we can avoid that where possible. And obviously social media is such a hot topic generally and has been for quite some time now. But aside from going viral, how should an employer act if employees make inappropriate social media posts?
Definitely, I think as soon as it's brought to their attention, initiate a discussion and establish the facts, to do an investigation as you would with any conduct issue. You know, depending on the content of the post, there could be, you know, something discriminatory contained within it. They could be friends with colleagues on social media who could take offence to posts and raise a complaint that way. First things first, when it's brought to your attention, investigate it, establish the facts, and, you know, follow the same process as you would with any conduct issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So following on from what we were saying there, so as a part of your duty of care as an employer, obviously you need to protect your team and your employees from abuse and harassment by fellow colleagues. But what about harassment from outside of work?
Yeah, like I think, you know, if it is like the alleged harasser potentially is somebody that's harassing somebody within the workplace, you know, there's definitely obligations on the employer in those instances. We already have legislation in place around harassment in the workplace and sexual harassment that is further being strengthened under the Employment Rights Act as well. So it's not just enough to make sure that you have a policy in place that your employees are aware of, but, you know, if you have customers or members of the public coming in, if you have any contractors working on site or volunteers, you know, they should be made aware of those policies as well. And you should be doing training within the workplace. So making sure that all of your employees are aware of what constitutes bullying, harassment, sexual harassment, and making sure that they know what to do in the event that they're involved in an incident, and that you have policies, procedures in place as well. And I would also go the extra step, which I suppose from a sexual harassment perspective, it's really, really important and you need to do that anyway. But, you know, your management have training and they know how to deal with the situations as well. They can be quite sensitive. Sometimes, unfortunately, they can be quite hard and difficult to deal with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a massive believer of, you know, you can have the policies in place, but if you're not going to implement them on the ground and within line management, then essentially you may not bother in the first place.
Absolutely. There's no point in just having a tick the box exercise in place.
Yeah, exactly. And for hospitality workers, obviously late kickoffs mean longer hours, unfortunately, for them. What do employers need to check or bear in mind?
First things first, I suppose, making sure that they're complying with any working time regulations, that employees are getting appropriate rest periods, they're getting their breaks. I know our BrightHR clients, they would use that blip for that as well. So when I mentioned earlier that they clock in and clock out, you would also record your breaks on that. And then management can track that and review it by running reports. And I suppose making sure that as well, if you're having anyone work additional hours above and beyond, that you're complying with any contractual entitlements, maybe in relation to overtime, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was always so much to consider in the hospitality industry anyway. But obviously when we throw the World Cup into the mix, it's more layers of compliance checks, really. So to summarize then, you need to constantly remind your staff about what your expectations of behavior are, what positive behavior looks like within your business. Having policies and procedures is good, but communicating them is everything.
Absolutely. So yes, as you said, make sure that you're communicating the policies as well as having them in place. And whilst, World Cup fever is here, it's still the same policies that you're adhering to. So I think it's a good time just to remind your employees of what those policies are, and that, any issues that arise will be addressed in line with those policies.
Absolutely. And obviously what we're discussing here today does form a part of a wider conversation. If you're keen to watch a few of our other video podcasts, you can go on to www.brighthr.com/webinars and view our whole on-demand library there for all the interesting topics that we've discussed. But yeah, thank you for being here, Gemma.
No, thank you very much for having me.